right, welcome to another live lesson. Let's start out by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachah Kodash. The name of this one is Nero burned down Rome and blamed it on the Christians. This video is inspired. It's a lamb back off of Elder Apostle video that he did dealing with Claudius Caesar. I believe it was. I can't really remember the full name of the video, but if you give me a second, I'll be able to pull it up. It's called "Why Did Claudius Caesar Expel the Jews from Rome?" And he briefly mentioned about Nero and him burning down Rome and blaming it on the Christians. So, Spirit jumped on me to, look it up, and kind of, get a couple of points and some precepts. And Lord's will, it'll be an edifying lesson. Because this is a part of history. This is a part of our history. When you read about, the Christians back then, it's not talking about these wacky-tacky Christians today. It's talking about the real followers of Yahushua that were being persecuted for believing in Yahushua. And there was a great persecution that came against the church because of the teachings of Yahushua, just like Yahushua went through the things that he went through. And he told the disciples that the servant is not greater than his master. If they did it to him in so many words, they're going to do it to you. So what you're looking at is just a painting that somebody painted of Nero Trump. And you can see he's playing the lyre. And behind him, you see Rome on fire. And pretty much they said that, I believe it was 14. It was a lot of structures that were destroyed. And only like 4 were not touched by this fire. And there's different accounts of it and different reasonings. You have your yay sayers and your naysayers. So you know how it is with everything. You have information, you have disinformation, you have part facts. But nevertheless, we know that the fire took place, and we know that there was a great persecution against the Israelites back then, especially the ones that believed in Yahushua. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here. This is called Great Fire of Rome. These 2 tabs I put in the description box for those that want to get any further edification on it. I'm just going to read a couple of points in here and then move on to the next one and then get some precepts and then, end the lesson. It says the Great Fire of Rome, Latin Incendium Magnum Romae, or however you say that, was an urban fire that occurred in July 64 AD. The fire began in the merchant shops around Rome's Chariot Stadium, Circus Maximus. On the night of 19 July, after 6 days, the fire was brought under control, but before the damage could be assessed, the fire reignited and burned for another 3 days, so altogether 9 days. In the aftermath of the fire, 2/3 of Rome had been destroyed. According to Tacitus and later Christian tradition, Emperor Nero blamed the devastation on the Christian community in the city, initiating the empire's first persecution against the Christians. However, some modern historians, including the Princeton classical Brent Shaw, have cast doubt on the traditional view that Nero blamed the Christians for the fire. So like I say, you're going to have your yay sayers and your naysayers. And we know that the scriptures don't lie. And the scriptures speak about a great persecution that came against the Hamashiachim, or the followers, should I say, the followers of the anointed Yahushua, which they call Christians. Let's see. There were different fires in Rome. I'm just going to read a couple of these and then move on. It says Nero was proclaimed emperor in AD 54 at age of 17. His rule has commonly been associated with impulsiveness and tyranny. Early in his reign, he was heavily advised, but he slowly became more independent in 59 AD, encouraged by his mistress Poppaea. Nero murdered his mother. His leading advisor Seneca was discharged and forced to commit suicide after the Great Fire of Rome occurred in July AD 64. It was rumored that Nero ordered the fire to clear the space for a new palace. At the time of the fire, Nero may not have been in the city, but 35 miles away at his villa in Antium, and possibly returned to the city before the fire was out. Tacitus, which was a historian, Publius Cornelius Tacitus was a senator and historian of the Roman Empire. His exact birth date is unknown, but most sources place it in either AD 56 or 57. His two main works, the Annals and the Histories, covered the history of the empire between AD 14 and AD 96. However, much of the work has been lost, including books covering events after AD 70. He was only 8 years old at the time of the fire, but he was able to use public records and report to write an accurate account. And then you have, different other accounts, which we're going to skip that because we're just focusing on the fire itself. Tacitus, this is the same individual, on the Christians. On 19 through 27 July 64, Rome was destroyed by a great fire. Only 4 of its 14 quarters remained intact. The Emperor Nero was blamed by the Roman populace, and in turn blamed the Christians. The Roman historian Tacitus explains what happened. The translator of Annals 15.44 is not known, but all human efforts, all the lavish gifts of the emperor, and the propitiations of the gods did not banish the sinister belief that the conflagration was the result of an order. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. So we know this is talking about Yahushua. This ain't talking about nobody else. This ain't talking about another guy, Christus or Chris, whatever. It's talking about Yahushua. At the time, Tiberius was emperor, and Pontius Pilate was the procurator of Judea. And most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Accordingly, an arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty. Then, upon their information, an immense multitude was convicted, not so much of the crime of the firing of the city as of the hatred against mankind. Mockery of every sort was added to their deaths, and this was pretty much to fulfill biblical prophecy. Let's get real quick. 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 9. I'll start at 8. Now you're full, now you're rich, you have reigned as kings without us, and I would to the Most High you did reign, that we also might reign with you. For I think that the Most High has set forth us, the apostles, last, as it were appointed to death, right? Because there were great persecutions that were centered around, what they call a sect of the Christians. Anyone that was following that was considered an enemy either of, the religion of the Jews or Rome itself, being seditious against the Roman Empire, saying that there was another king besides Caesar. For we are made a spectacle unto the world and to angels and to men. We are fools for Yahweh's sake. And this is why it was said of some of these Christians that they were being mocked, while they were being put to death. Right? It says, for we are fools for Yahweh's sake, but ye are wise in Yahweh. We are weak, but ye are strong. You are honorable, but we are despised. So dealing with we are fools for Yahweh's sake, this is what would happen. The believers in the Lord were persecuted and put to death in a lot of cases. So it goes on to say, covered with the skins of beasts, they were torn by dogs and perished, or were nailed to crosses, or were doomed to the flames and burnt, to serve as a mighty illumination when daylight had expired. Commentary. Rome was destroyed by fire in July 64. Tacitus' story suggests that the Christians were killed in the same summer. An early Christian tradition adds some details such as the decapitation of Paul and the crucifixion of Peter. Now, this is in the history. We don't know how accurate this is, but it's in the history, and we know that Peter was crucified because Yahushua told him that he would be crucified. You know, so when you were young, you girded yourself, something along those lines. When you're old, somebody else is going to gird you or something along those lines. So he was crucified, and in the history, it said that he wanted to be crucified upside down because he wasn't worthy to be crucified as our Lord was, you know, right side up. All right. It says, why did Nero blame the Christians? The answer may be that they were living near the place where the fire started. The eastern part of the Circus Maximus, it should be noted that the first Roman Christians were Jews and probably lived with the other Jews. The ways of Judaism and Christianity parted later. One of the Jewish quarters in Rome was just east of the Circus, near the Capena Gate. It is described by the Roman author Juvenal as a slum area, and you know that's Jake. You know, always, you know, in the worst parts of the city, because that's part of the curses. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. So wherever there are ghettos in the world, Jake is there, serving those punishments, those curses. So this is what Juvenal wrote. Now the grove, with its sacred spring and the shrine of a water goddess, are rented to the Jews, whose worldly goods are no more than a basket and some hay. See, because you had a lot of Jakes that were poor back then, and this is why the Apostle Paul would go. Matter of fact, Peter had actually told him. Let's see if I can get that. Nope, that's not it. Oh man. Hey, Brakate, how about Shem Yahushua? Woo! Spirit is bad. All right, so Galatians 2 and 9. And when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the circumcision. Only they would that we should remember the poor, the same which I also was forward to do. And there were a lot of poor Israelites in Jerusalem. And this is what they would do, take care of them, you know. So according to Juvenal's statement, you know, he said that this area was rented to the Jews, whose worldly goods are no more than a basket and some hay. The wood has become the haunt of beggars. See, because you had a lot of, this is why you had a lot of relief constantly going to Jerusalem. Let me see if I can find this other precept. Just bear with me 1 second. Wow, it's too many. 2018. All right, forget about that. Let's get to the book. That verse was Galatians 2 and 10. Let's get it. Spare with me 1 second. Let's see if there's a precept here, because I know there's more, but I just don't know exactly where it is. So just bear with me, and if you can't bear, then you can move on to the next video. See. Let me see what this says. Okay, this was dealing with the with the there was a actual famine in the land, in the, Judea, around those areas. But I didn't really want that. Let me see if I type this. If not, we'll move on. Let me try one more thing. Woo! Barakateh Hawa Bashem Hawashai once again. Salakia. Here we go. This is Romans chapter 15. I started 22. For which cause also I have been much hindered from coming to you. But now having no more place in these parts, and having a great desire these many years to come unto you, whensoever I take my journey into Spain, I will come to you. For I trust to see you in my journey, and to be brought on my way thitherward by you. At first I be somewhat filled with your company, but now I go unto Jerusalem or Jerusalem to minister unto the saints, for it had pleased them of Macedonia and Achaia to make a certain contribution for the poor saints which are at Jerusalem, which ties in with what Juvenal was saying about the areas where in Rome, where the Israelites were at, and pretty much how they were slum areas. The wood has become the haunt of beggars. And you see that in all these major cities. You see a lot of jakes that are homeless, on the street corners begging. Some of them are just straight up homeless. Some of them were alcoholics. Some of them were drug addicts. Some of them just fell on hard luck. But nevertheless, this is the curses falling upon Jake. Curse shall thou be in the city, and curse shall thou be in the field. So just bear with me 1 second. It says that there were Christians living among the Jewish proletariat, because you had the higher ups also. Not every Israelite was poor. The so-called Pharisees and Sadducees, they were rich. How do we know that? Let's go to the book of, I believe it's Matthew 23. Let me see if it's there. But I know there's one in Luke. Let me just bear with me, see if I can find the one in Luke. That's it right here. Luke 21. Let's get to Luke 21. Luke 21 and 4. So let's see. I started 1. And he looked up and saw the rich men, casting their gifts into the treasury. So you had, among Jake, you had those that were rich. And Joseph of Arimathea was rich, but he was a righteous rich man. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in thither 2 mites. And he said, of a truth I say unto you, that this poor woman hath cast in more than they all. For all these have of their abundance cast in unto the offering of the Most High, but she of her penury hath cast in all the living that she had. So you had a lot of well-to-do Jakes back then. All right, so let's go back. It says that there were Christians living among the Jewish proletariat, which the proletariat were like the high society Jakes, the bougie, proletariat workers or working class people regarded collectively the lowest class of citizens in ancient Rome. Okay, maybe I had that wrong. Salakia. Hold on. Just bear with me right quick. Because in the movie 1984, the proletariat were higher up than the common folk. Okay, here it's saying that they were accepted meager wages in return to operating the means of production, belong to class. So pretty much in return for operating the means of production which belong to the class of business owners, the bourgeoisie. Yeah. So they were well to do, but they were still not, on the level, of the super rich, So I had to do a little more research on this. Let me just put this to the side. All right, so let's go back. That there were Christians living among the Jewish proletariat is also suggested by the presence of very ancient church, the SS Nero et Achilleo, which is in a venerably old legend connected with Peter's last days. Both the Capena Gate and this church are situated on the Appian Road, which was also connected with the last days of Peter. So there were Jews living near the place where the fire started, and there was another reason to suspect the people near the Capena Gate. Their part of the city was not destroyed by the fire. But Nero could never punish the Jews of Rome. There were thousands of them. The Christians, on the other hand, were an easy target. So Tiberius, at one point got rid of Jake out of Rome, but to pin this on the Jews or the Israelites that didn't believe in Yahushua was going to be harder to do because there were so many of them all throughout Rome. So in other words, so what he did was he blamed it on a smaller group, the Christians, which were also Israelites, because it was easier. Plus, they were already hated. It says, moreover, there may have been some element of distorted truth in the accusation, because the Christians believed that Rome would be destroyed during Yahushua's return, which they will. They must have responded enthusiastically when they saw Babylon burning, when that was in Babylon burning. Because this happened, 64 AD? And the book of Revelation wasn't written until at least 96 BC. So this is not, whoever wrote this part here was bugging, because they were, thinking about Babylon burning in Revelation, but they didn't consider that was written, over about 30 years later. So this didn't exist during the time of Nero Caesar and the burning down of Rome. Although Rome, being America in the reincarnation, will be burnt this time, but back then the ancient Roman Empire was not Babylon. Babylon is America, or Babylon the Great. And in fact, Tacitus tells us that at least some of them pleaded guilty. An example, admitted something that their interlocutors interpreted as a confession. Their execution in a circus on the Vatican Hill, where Nero's family possessed a villa and a park, was a kind of comic relief to the badly hit Romans. Tacitus remarked that they were covered with the skins of beasts and torn by dogs, suggests that several Christians were the unwilling actors in the mythological tableau vivant, the death of Actaeon, a legendary hunter who was devoured by his own dogs. In the first letter of Clement, we also read about women being tortured as if they were the mythological Danaids or the legendary criminal Dirce. 6.2. The climax of these cruel shows was the mockery of the crucifixion of Yahushua. According to a 2nd century tradition, the Christian leader Peter was crucified upside down. All right, so I put this in the description box also. So just goes to show you that there was a lot of persecutions going on against Israel, and it wasn't just that; it was many other things. But that was, a major time when Jake was being persecuted. So what we're going to do is going to hit a couple of precepts and close the lesson out. This is a book of 2 Timothy chapter 3. I started 10. But thou hast fully known my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, charity, patience, persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra. What persecutions I endured, but out of them all the Lord delivered me. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Yea, and all that will live godly in Yahushai HaMashiach shall suffer persecution. And this is, what was happening back then, and this is what's about to happen again. See, because the scriptures speak about there's going to be a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. So that great persecution is coming again in the form of Jacob's trouble in these times, prior to the Lord coming back. So what we're going to do here is go to the book, not the book, we're going to go to the word persecution, dioko, to make, to run, or flee. So why would they run or flee? Because they were being chased. They were being tortured. They were being, tortured. Yeah, that's the best word, tortured. And there was a situation. It's in one of the letters of Paul, but I can't think of. Yep, 2 Corinthians 11 and 30. If I must needs glory, I will glory of the things which concern mine infirmities. The power and Father of our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach, which is blessed forever. Aretas, the king, kept the city of the Damascenes with a garrison desirous to apprehend me. Why? For the word. Remember, the Apostle John said he was what? Before we read on, let's go. Let me just get this real quick. Beautiful. So let's get this one. In Damascus, the governor under Aretas, the king, kept the city of the Damascenes with a garrison desirous to apprehend me. Why? Because of the testimony and the things that he was teaching. And through a window in the basket was I let down by the wall and escaped his hands. Why? Because it wasn't time for Paul to be put to death yet. So the Lord made a way for him to escape. And it was because of the great persecution that was taking place. Revelation 1:9, Patmos vision. I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom and patience of Yahushua HaMashiach, was in an isle that is called Patmos for the word of the Most High and for the testimony of Yahushua. So Yahushua said through the mouth of Paul, all that will live godly in Yahushua shall suffer persecution. See? So going back to the word persecution, to make, to run or flee, put to flight, drive away, to run swiftly in order to catch a person or thing, to run after, to press on, figuratively of one who is in a race, one who in a race runs swiftly to reach the goal, being pursued in a hostile manner. Because the word persecution is not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean catching a beat down. The word persecution, you could go to the word in Spanish, perseguir, or the English word pursue, which means to chase. You see? And they were being chased for their beliefs, And some of them were caught in prison, some of them were tortured, some of them were killed, some of them were crucified. It all depended, on the individual. So it says, in any way, whatever to harass, trouble, molest one. Yeah, they were being persecuted because they were being chased. It says to persecute, to be mistreated, suffer persecution on account of something. So they would have to chase them, catch them, and then, torture or whatever they did, imprison or whatever the case, give them fines. Without the idea of hostility, to run after, follow after someone, metaphorically to pursue. See? To pursue. to seek after eagerly, earnestly endeavor to acquire. All right, so let's read this once again, and we can get a couple other precepts. 2 Timothy 3 and 12. Yea, and all that will live godly in Yahushua shall suffer persecution. Now let's go from there to the book of Acts, chapter 8 and 1. And the Apostle Paul, when his name was Saul, he was actually persecuting the Christians at one time. This is one of the accounts, Acts 8 and 1. And Saul was consenting unto his death, meaning the death of Stephen. When you read the 7th chapter, Stephen was running down the whole history, going back to Abraham, all the way through Egypt, and all the way up until, Yahushua, and breaking it down. And they were mesmerized for the moment, but afterwards they got enraged, and they ran out after him and pretty much stoned him to death. And Saul was consenting unto his death, and at that time there was a great persecution against the church. See? Now this happened, just bear me 1 second. This was actually before, I believe this was actually before the great fire that Nero, when Nero burned down Rome. Let's see. Yeah, it's not really giving me any dates. I mean, it's giving me a date. I know this is not the date, because AD 33, that's when Yahushua was crucified. So it was around that time period, maybe a little further up, but there was a lot of persecution going on. Paul himself, when he was Saul, which the word Saul means destroyer, he was actually going around and jacking them up. Matter of fact, the brother GMS shined the gospel, persecution, oppression for the holding of a belief or opinion, damage, affliction, suffering, to follow, pursue. This is really what it means, but to follow and pursue for the purpose of torture and putting hell on somebody. Hunt down, and that's what they were being done. They were being hunted. Proceed against, prosecute, start a legal action, and that's what was happening. All right, so let's read this again. And Saul was consenting unto his death, and at that time there was a great persecution against the church which was at Jerusalem or Jerusalem, and they were all scattered abroad throughout all of the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. And devout men carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentation over him. Why? Because he was put to death for his testimony. Just as all of the other apostles were. Except for the apostle John. They didn't really mention how he died. But that he had to die on the island of Patmos because he was a man at that time. So let's see what else we got. Let's go to the 11th chapter of Acts. And let's see where we could start. It says the church at Antioch. Acts 11:19. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenice and Cyprus. So through this persecution, Jake would flee. It says, and Antioch. So these Israelites were fleeing to these different places. So not only Africa, so-called Africa, the land of Ham, was the only place where Jake was fleeing to. You got to remember, they were fleeing into all these other areas. You had Israelite communities all throughout those regions, not just in the interiors of the land of Ham. You had, up in Asia Minor, Rome, Spain, all Greece, not Pakistan, India, all in all those regions there. All you gotta do is read Acts chapter where it speaks about the Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. And shalom to the elders, Akim on the comment board, and the Akwaf. And shalom GMS Italia. It says that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenice and Cyprus and Antioch, preaching the word of to none but unto the Jews only. All right. So there was a great persecution, great chasing. Now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Acts 13. Let's see what that says. Acts 13 and it looks like 15. Wonder if I had the right verse. Just bear me 1 second. 50. All right. Not 50, not 15. It was 50. Acts 13 and 50. I started 49. And the word of the Lord was published throughout all the region, but the Jews stirred up the devout and honorable women and the chief men of the city and raised persecution against Paul and Barnabas and expelled them out of their coasts. But they shook off the dust of their feet against them and came unto Iconium. Yeah, and that's what you're supposed to do. If somebody persecutes you in one city, or if they don't listen, you just shake the dust, eventually shake the dust and move on to somewhere else. It says, and the disciples were filled with joy and with the Holy Spirit. So there was, like I said, a great persecution against the church, against the believers of Yahushua. Let's go from there to Galatians 6. And let's start at 11. You see how large a letter I have written unto you with mine own hand. As many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Yahushua. Yeah, because you had some that believed in the Lord, but they wanted to have everything running, under the orders of the wicked Pharisees and Sadducees, and then back then, or just the Pharisees and Sadducees, and then back then, because they didn't want to suffer persecution for the word of the Lord. And it don't work that way. It says all that will live godly in Yahushua shall suffer persecution. So if you are truly a disciple of the Lord, you're going to go through these persecutions. There's no middle ground. There's no right defense on that. Now let's go from there to 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and 3. We are bound to thank the Most High always for you, brethren, as it is meet, because that your faith groweth exceedingly, and the charity of every one of you all toward each other aboundeth, so that we ourselves glory in you in the churches of the Most High for your patience and faith in all your persecutions and tribulations that ye endure. And this is a part, that's why Yahweh said, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. Because this is a walk, this is a journey. And you have to remember that this message that we're teaching does not jive with the world. And the Lord already told us what things would happen. St. John 7 and 7. The world cannot hate you, but me it hateth, because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. So if the message that we're given is in direct confliction with the world view, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to persecute you. They're not going to take heed. They're not going to listen. And Yahweh already said that was going to happen. So now the last precept I have here is 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 12. Share the sufferings of Yahushua. 1 Peter 4:12. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. Yeah, it happened unto you. So don't look at it, as it's strange when people don't accept the message that we're giving them. Don't accept you, start talking shit about you, persecute you, separate you from their company. Don't think that's strange, because this is part of what's supposed to take place. You losing your family members, you losing your woman, you losing your children. Sisters that believe in this losing their husband, because they don't want to be with them anymore because of what they're into. Don't think it's strange. People finding out on your job and you lost, your job because somebody told them that, you were an Israelite, that you were racist or whatever the case is. Don't think it's strange. It says, but rejoice in as much as you are partakers of Yahweh's sufferings. That's right. And this is how you know the signature of Israelite that believes in the Lord and that is a part of the elect. they're going through these persecutions. That's the stamp of approval of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, that that individual has to be a man of the Lord. So it says that when his glory shall be revealed, you may be glad also with exceeding joy. If you be reproached for the name of Yahushua, happy, excuse me, happy are ye. If you be reproached for the name of Yahushua, happy are ye. For the spirit of glory and of the Most High resteth upon you. So you have to remember that when people look at us, they're looking at us different because of the spirit that the Lord has upon us. It has nothing to do, with looks. It has nothing to do with, oh, I don't like the way you're wearing your beard, because now a lot of men have beards that are not even in the truth. It's just the spirit. It's just the message. And even before they even hear you speak, the spirits that are in them, don't jive with the spirit that's in us. It says, on their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, or as a thief, or as an evildoer, or as a busybody in other men's matters. Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him let him glorify the Most High on this behalf. Why? Because this is the true seal that the Lord is dealing with that individual. Okay? So pretty much, we went through Nero. The name of the lesson is Nero burnt down Rome and blamed it on the Christians. And there's a great persecution, that happened against the people of the Lord, the ones that believed in the Messiah back then. You know what? I'm going to read a couple of these since brothers put some, or two brothers put the same precept up, so I'm going to grab this one. St. John 15:19, if you were of the world would love his own. Beautiful. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. It says, remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my sayings, they will keep yours also. That's right. This brother here, Ecclesiasticus 2:1, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. That's right, because that is a part of, this walk. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make no haste in time of trouble. So there's going to be things that they're going to do and blame it on the Israelites. You already see their stage is already set. They got certain thoughts in people's minds already. But hey, be it as it may, it has to go down. The sooner the better. Cleave unto him, depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. Going back to the next verse on John 15, verse 21. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake. See, we carrying the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, because they know not him that sent me. And this is why they're coming against this. James 1:2, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Yeah, because there's another scripture in Timothy that it says that you are in, let me see how they go. Let me see if I can find it. It's either 1 Timothy or 2 Timothy. It's got to be 2 Timothy. Let's see how. Just bear with me one second. No, it wasn't this one. You know what? Let me try this one. Yeah, this is it. First Peter 1:6, wherein you greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations, meaning many different folds. It comes in many different forms, many different ways. that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perishes, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahushai, whom having not seen you love, and whom, though now you see him not, yet believing, you rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory, receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your soul. Remember, we read at the beginning, he that will suffer, that will live godly in Yahushai shall suffer persecution. All right. So this is why this was one example: Nero burning Rome down and blaming it on the Christians. But there were many different persecutions that came about, dealing with the nation of Israel. Especially the ones that believed in Yahushai. All right. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. Until the next time, I say Shalom.